want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
Your home for healthy masculinity. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
Hey. It is the Mad Men of Masculinity. I am Jason B. Kendrick, and we have a stranger in the audience today, or in the studio today. Today, since Kirk decided to go on vacation, I don't know what a vacation is, but he decided to go on some cruise and go have a good time, so I called him my man here, Brett Zachman from bmen.org. Mr. Brett, how you doing today, sir?
Hey, I'm great, Jason. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for, fighting the Denver traffic and coming to the studio to join us for another Mad Men of Masculinity episode. So tonight, we're talking about servant warrior. I know you just had a meeting about this, so let's dig into it. Like, what do you mean by servant warrior? What are we talking about here?
Yeah. So, when you think about it, servant warrior, it's almost like an oxymoron because we've been talking a lot about words and symbols, and I don't know if anybody on this show is familiar with Don Miguel Ruiz, right? And the four, you got the 4 agreements: be impeccable with your words. Then he's written the 5th agreement, and he's really talked about, words become symbols, become stories, become books almost, right? Over, years, generations, centuries, and suddenly things, we're not quite sure what they mean. And so for men, what we were trying to break down is, hey, when you think of serve or you think of servant, are you okay with that? Or does that put you in a one-down position?
Right. Yeah, no, I get it, because, even when you get in, break into things like, the samurai, the meaning of samurai is one who serves.
Right.
And really, I think we've kind of talked about this before in the kind of the purpose episode, but really, finding your purpose is really finding what are you good at serving? What do you want to serve? What's your purpose in life? And usually that comes in some sort of service. Like there's some sort of how am I making the world a better place? Like we do this show and you do Be Men. You run this huge men's group. So it's about up-leveling men so that we can make the world a better place. And in that way, we're of service, right?
Yep. That's absolutely right. Some of the people that we admire the most, in the modern day century have done just that. They've been of service, whether you're talking to somebody like a Gandhi or you're talking Mother Teresa or you're talking Martin Luther King Jr., they were serving a populace or they were serving a demographic or they were serving, different people at different times. And then what's interesting, so then you take like warrior. Okay, so you got war in the name. But like you just said, samurai, I bet you ask any man on the street present day, you say samurai, they think warrior. They don't think of service. Right?
Well, and this is the thing is coming from a military background, growing up, in an army family, being a veteran, like all those guys who are warriors, they're serving their country. Like even those who maybe, fight or box or, or athletic that way, and they're serving probably their family. There's some sort of service. And that's one of the things that always drives us crazy, especially on this show, is the whole feminist narrative of the patriarchy and all, it's all about the men and everything's done for the men and men created everything. But we did everything for our families. We created everything for usually our wives and our children. And it wasn't really about us and just being greedy men's and all this stuff. Granted, there are some greedy men's out there, and you can't say say that we're all one way or the other. But for the most part, I would say 90%, if not more, are of service to their family, to their community, to their nation. And so, looking at this from a point of service, even when we talk about relationships, which we talk about most of the time, especially on this show, and it's really how do you serve? Are you coming from a mindset of service? And I think that's probably one of the reasons nowadays there's such a war on healthy masculinity, because when a man doesn't have a family, he's less likely to become a warrior. When he doesn't have somebody to serve or to fight for or to lay his life on the line for, he's less likely to become that warrior that we need to protect our nation and in our communities and our towns.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. In building Be Men, we talk a lot about, what is your purpose? and hey, it's great to make money, and, money makes the world go round, and you get some currency, and then you can buy some stuff, and you can have some material possessions, go on some cool vacations, right? And you could do that for decades and then pass away. Like I'm apt to say, I did an intro video for Be Men and said, here's a story about my life. And my sons are up at a podium and they're at a mic like this, and they're talking about their dad, and like, hey, dad took care of me and my little bro, and he paid all the bills on time. He made sure that we were sheltered, clothed, this, that, and the other. And then he died.
Awesome.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that story, man, right? Millions, tens of millions of guys have lived that story. But then it's like, okay, but what, is there something more? Is there something more than just getting up, going to work, making some money, exchanging currency for time, currency for food, currency for family vacation? And you're right. So many of us, partner, children, my sons, that drives me. And if you're, and I know, we've got a huge push right now, it seems like, in the modern generation of like, find your passion. Oh my God, we're obsessed with, if you don't have a passion, well, are you really a man? I would want to tell every man out there, like, breathe, take a moment. I was 40 by the time Be Men rolled around. I mean, that's halfway through your life. And then it found me. Like, I didn't really find it.
Right.
Like, it came and found me. So.
Well, speaking of, since we haven't even dug into what is Be Men, I mean, you are the founder of Be Men. It is this big community that Kirk and I are both a part of. We love to support as often as we can. But, I mean, tell us about that story. Like, how did you end up doing Be Men, and kind of what is it?
Yeah. And I would love to tell you all, like, the sexy,
give me the sexy.
Give you the sexy 5.5 stars on Netflix and Rotten Tomatoes and everything else story. But that would be a little bit of make-believe. I mean, the God's honest truth, and we hear this a lot, sometimes out of your pain comes your purpose. Well, out of a crap ton of pain came my purpose. And so 20 some odd years ago, I stepped through separation and divorce. Mm-hmm. And that changes my world, like inside out and upside down. But then what compounded everything was I watched 7 of my closest male friends go through it too, in like 2.5 years. So it was like dominoes. We talk about these stages of life, this 7-year itch thing that they talk about. Well, it's seemingly for real, because we were all right there in that 7 to 9 year time frame. And after I got through the survival stage, I asked this question. Well, Jason, where do men go? And we're on a men's show. Can we throw out colorful metaphors? Are we good with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just keep PC, colorful metaphors.
All right.
Right.
So, where do men go when the crap hits the fan?
Nowhere usually. The bottle or the bar, something like that.
You named one of them. I could only come up with 2 answers: bars and churches.
Yeah.
Bars are problematic for obvious reasons. Churches sometimes for more subtle reasons.
Right.
And I grew up in the church. But, and then, of course, I was like, well, I'll just, Google that stuff. GTS it. There's got to be stuff out there. I don't need to build anything. I just need to go show up somewhere.
Right.
Man, I couldn't find. Yeah. I found all sorts of support, and not knocking women. I think women are doing a great job of building their communities and supporting each other, and they're encouraged to do so. But all I could find with men was like, here's how to decimate your former spouse in family court law. I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't want to be a part of that club.
Right.
So seemed like we would build a divorced men's support group. Nobody wants to sign up for that club. Shocker.
Wonder why.
Here's your divorced man card. I'm like, no. So it just got, over time, it metamorphosized. And so Be Men now is kind of 3 layers, right? We got a public-facing website. We've got an online open group community on Facebook. And then we do experiential events. So we will take the kids from Mount St. Vincent home out for bowling, pizza, and soda. We will go get our hair chopped, for St. Baldrick's Foundation. We'll be of service, right? Yeah. Figure out, go find ways where the community is in need of positive male role models and see what we can do.
And that's awesome, because, I've been I've run men's groups, and, sometimes it's just a circle of guys sitting around complaining and kind of, accepting the fact that we all feel like victims and none of us feel like men today, et cetera, et cetera. But having something like this where you actually go out and do things. I've been to some of those events, and they're great events because it doesn't feel like some sort of men's group, rah, let's get together and be men. It's like, let's just be dudes hanging out together and do something positive, which I think falls right in line with the whole servant warrior thing, because you come out with a group of guys doing something like that, holding an event and doing it for the kids. And I don't know any guys that would do something like that. I know in my experience, you go to those events and you're interacting with the kids. You're putting on your best, like, I'm a guy, a healthy masculine hat. You're being a good example for these kids, and it just makes you feel like, when you're talking about finding your purpose, purpose shouldn't be such a big thing, because usually most of us find a purpose, like you said, kind of naturally. It falls in your lap. Usually it's, a wife, kids, it's family, maybe it's a career or something like that, but you tend to find it as you grow. And doing something like this helps you to find more purpose in your life or more meaning, because you're being of service. And that's one of the things I keep saying to people, like, if you are depressed and lacking direction, and you look at your life and you're missing something, well, go give that whatever it is you're missing. If you're lonely, go support a group. Go support, maybe go hand out food at the homeless shelter. Go support somebody else and get out there. If you're depressed, go help somebody else who's depressed. If whatever it is, go give what it is you want to receive. And a lot of times we as men are especially taught to suck it up, stiff upper lip. Don't let anybody know you're struggling. And by doing that, by not going out and doing something, we're like, oh, see, I'm sucking it up. I've got the stiff upper lip. I'm not letting anybody know that I'm struggling. And then they're 4 times more likely to take themselves out. And, this is why having things like Be Men is such a huge benefit to most guys, because we just get stuck in these ruts. And unfortunately, the modern media and the kind of society we're in, they're not, like you said, are not really open to helping men in the same way that they are open to women. But of course, I think that comes back to us men, because if a woman asks for help, she's empowered.
Right.
If a man asks for help, he's usually shamed. So this is something we've got to change. Yeah.
I mean, I am huge about, and I'm going to do, it's going to take time. Like, let's be honest. Like, we didn't get into this mess. We didn't get into FUBAR in 3 to 5 years. We got into this mess in 3 to 5 minimum generations, right? Yeah. So it's been hundreds of years in the making. But I would love over time, the rest of my life, to see B-men start to break down some of these cultural norms, break down some of these cliches. So you mentioned one, if a man reaches out, is that weakness?
Right.
Well, it depends on which way you're looking at it. I mean, we have some cliches like iron sharpens iron, right? No man left behind. Well, but then we're like, okay, but I should be kind of an island on a, island in a hurricane, and I should be the lone wolf, right? And we see all these kind of movies, like Lone Survivor, and what's intriguing, and I tried that. I mean, guys, like I wish I could tell you I found the secret sauce, and 15 years ago, 12 years ago, 20 years ago, I bumped into the Holy Grail, and there it was, and the doves alighted and the clouds parted. No, I did everything the wrong way. Yeah. I shut down. I did the machismo route like you're talking about. Nobody knew, none of my buddies, my family. So when the crap hit the fan, and all the people who could have supported me, helped me out, who love me, who care about me, knew nothing. Yeah. I kind of call it the old yeller. Maybe I'm dating myself, and that old story of, like, the dog wanders off into the forest and he curls up under the tree, and one of two things happens. Either A, dog dies, or B, somehow miraculously dog heals, comes scampering back to their master. Well, ladies, gentlemen, men are not dogs.
As much as you would like us to be dogs. Right. Speaking of dogs, we're going to take a little break here on Mad Men and Masculinity on KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High Seat. We'll be right back. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, beautiful. Good stuff. Is my mic in the right spot?
Yeah, you can, totally up to you. You can bring it down like mine, or you can leave it there.
And question,
is his sound good, Nikki?
Where do I look? Do I look at you? Do I look at the camera?
Thank you. Yeah, look at the camera. It's always weird when you're in studio with somebody and you want to look at them, and then look at the camera. Because
I was kind of looking at you. So I'll look at the camera.
No, you're fine.
I should have asked before.
You're good.
Novice.
It's a whole new world for you, man. All right, I will bring us back in just a second.
Okay. Sounds good. See if I can untwist my thing here. Maybe not.
And we're back. Madmen of Masculinity on KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High City. And we got Brett Zachman from bmen.org in the house today. And we're talking about servant warriors, gentlemen. And I didn't mean to cut you off. I know we had to take a break, but you were digging into this whole, how we end up in these bad situations because we try to, stiff upper lip it and be that island in the storm and all that.
Yeah, and it looks cool, right? I mean, I get that. We get that.
John Wayne it, yeah.
Yeah, you
Pale
just...
Rider.
I mean, that's what sells, books and CDs and movies and stuff. But in the work that I've done over the last decade or more, I've actually met a couple of those guys, guys that we would say, and I've talked to a couple guys who are like special ops. And they've opened up and, if you can create a safe space for men, which is what Beeman is all about, let's get raw and real and talk about the stuff that nobody really wants to talk about. And they've said, Zach, it sucks.
Yeah.
Like it will psychologically mess you up. And so this whole idea, we're not built that way, right, Jason?
Yeah.
We're not built to be alone.
Yeah, and as much as, I am the king of isolation. I know that's just the way I grew up. I was an only child. Both my parents worked. I was a latchkey kid, and I learned the best way to stay out of trouble is to be out, basically be out of sight. And so you get that training, and even though you know better, I know better. I know I am much better in a group. I'm much better with my guys. I'm much better being around people, but it's just such a ingrained habit to immediately go and be by myself, especially when you get triggered, especially when something is bothering you. It's hard for guys nowadays, especially. I think it's getting, like you said, a little better, but it's going to take time because it took us decades to get here. But it is getting a little better, and that's the thing. You have to have your spot where you can go to. You got to have your boys. You got to have your groups where you can say, okay, this is where I know I'm safe. I can go and say, hey, I'm struggling or something's going on, because it's tough. Because sometimes you end up you get so used to isolating. I know from my experience, I get so used to that. I think a lot of times that's me healing. That's me processing my stuff, which most of the time that's just me numbing out my stuff and not even dealing with it. It's like, brush that under the rug. Let me not deal with that. Yeah.
I mean, it's, kind of nature, nurture. I'm convinced that it's not like, ladies, no offense, this is a good thing. Somewhere in your DNA, it seems like you have an extra chromosome called the connector chromosome. Men, I don't think, it doesn't seem like we have that as much, right? It doesn't come quite as naturally. And then we're kind of, culturally, competition is the word I think of.
Yep.
We're really taught to compete. And so, so sprinkle in a little bit of, non-abundance, scarcity, right? And it's not win-win, it's win-lose. And okay, I'm feeling weak. Well, then the last thing I'm going to do, and to make it really dramatic, we're on the radar. Let's get drama here. I swear it feels like World War Z or these like zombie apocalypse things that everybody's into. My sons are into them. I don't get it. But The Walking Dead, it's like if I open up to you and to Kirk and the guys, somewhere my brain, my ego says, and what's about to happen, Zach? These men are going to rip the flesh off your bones, set you out in front on the street, and let you slowly die in the sun.
Coming from nice guy syndrome and growing up that way and living that way for the majority or the beginning part of my adult life, like that was my thought process. Like all men are mean and they're going to make fun of you and this and that. And so I would try to surround myself with women a lot. And of course that is part and parcel of nice guy syndrome. You demonize men and stay away from them and then try to surround yourself with women. But it wasn't even really me trying to be friends with women. It was usually I feel safe because they're a little bit softer and they're not as out overtly mean. They're not mean to my face, kind of thing where, but that's how guys tend to bond. And of course, like what you were talking about, how ladies may have that connection chromosome. I think it's just different. I think women connect face to face and over conversation, and men connect side by side doing things. But when we demonize each other, then we're less likely to become get out there in the trenches and do whatever it is side by side like that.
Yeah. I heard a good pastor friend to say, look, we're not human doings, we're human beings. I was like, oh, that's brilliant. And then I left that day and I'm like, Nope. I'm gonna debate him on that, and I'm gonna go into be men, and I think it's both.
Yeah.
That's sort of, the duplicity of men is there's the beings part, right? We're energetic, we're spiritual, perhaps, but there's the doings part. If you take the doings out of it, then men, it gets too ethereal, it gets too intangible, and guys are like, ooh, what? Right. And so, like, here's an example. Here in the Denver area, for years, there's this Thanksgiving event. Gentleman by the name of Daddy Bruce Randolph started feeding the homeless way back in the day. Then he passed away. As so many times happens posthumously, it got bigger and it grew, and Walmart and major corporations got involved. And now they'll do like, 10, 20, 30,000 boxes of food.
Wow.
And so I could go down to that.
Yeah.
And I could help for a couple of hours on a Sunday. You could go down. Kirk could go down. Nothing wrong with that. But it's a totally different dynamic when 5 or 10 or 15 guys go down. We did it one year, freezing damn cold. It's like 30 degrees. We're like, what the hell are we doing out here, Zach? And they have these conveyors, and we're lifting these frozen turkeys, which feel like bowling balls. We turned it into a game, right? We had one team on one side, one team on the other. We're taking all these things out of the boxes, throw them off the pallets into the boxes, and it's like whoever gets the most frozen turkeys, gets free lunch, and the other team has to pay.
Yeah.
And it was just fun. It was a lot of fun.
Well, and that's like a lot of times I think people get confused when they hear like men compete and men are competitive and stuff like that. But that's kind of how we bond. It's kind of like, we're rude to, it's like a real friend, a real guy friend will be rude to your face and nice behind your back, and that's usually how it is. Like he'll call you names to your face, but then when you're not around, he'll be like, that's a great dude right there. I love that guy. So we operate differently a lot of times than women, but I think because we have such a lack of, beingness, as in being men, and then we somehow think that, being a human being is different than a human doing, to your point, a lot of times, it's not easy for most guys. I mean, if you've got a psychology degree and that's your profession, it's easier to talk about these in-depth, things, talk about emotions, talk about feelings. For the majority of us guys, we don't have much of an education when it comes to our emotions and feelings. And so we tend to connect by doing something, whether it's playing golf or bowling or helping the homeless, something like that. And in that way, we feel connected, and it helps us kind of process these things. And at some point, usually somebody will open up and get brave and say, hey, I've been struggling. My wife left, or I'm going through this thing, I'm going through that thing. And then somebody else goes, oh yeah, me too. I really want to talk about that. And that's usually kind of, I think the biggest difference is that's usually that acknowledgement of this thing is going on in my life as a man, and another man acknowledges he's going through that, is about the end of that conversation. Sometimes there's a little details, but we aren't as detail oriented as a lot of ladies. So, I mean, usually that's the conversation. Like, oh, so-and-so and his wife are splitting up. And then she's like, well, what happened? Or this, that. And he's like, I don't know.
And some of that is embracing, right? Like, let's embrace who we are as men. Women have been doing a great job of that. I mean, kudos to the women, right?
We can learn from them.
In the greatest democracy, supposedly, that ever existed in the modern, humanity, which is us here in the United States of America. 100 years ago, they were second-class citizens and they couldn't vote. And 50 years ago, they couldn't really go to a bank and open up a bank account. So women, my hat's off to you. What you've done in the last 50 to 100 years, it had to be done.
Yep.
And it was necessary, and you empowered, and great job. And then meanwhile, for men, no, there isn't healthy and toxic masculinity. There's just masculinity. It just is.
Yeah.
It's the behaviors, right, or the traits, or the things we're doing or not doing or saying or not saying that then starts having us label that. And so, okay, stereotypically, men don't talk as much.
Right.
So should we, shame men, blame men, guilt men because that's who they are? No, let's just embrace that, I started talking about B-men, 15 years ago or so, and I was asking ladies, I'm like, hey, do you talk about stuff? They're like, yeah, we talk about stuff. And, the old stereotype of like Sex and the City roundtable. I'm like, yeah, but do you really talk about stuff? Like the deep stuff. They're like, oh yeah, Zach, we talk about that stuff. I'm like, but like in detail? And they're like, yeah. I'm like everything. And I mean, it blew me away. They're like, from diaphragms to global warming. And then you go ask guys. I mean, here's these guys I had known 5, 10, 15, 20 years. We've been married for a half a dozen years. And all of a sudden, you peel the cover off the ball. He's going through a divorce. I'm going through a divorce. We sit at lunch. I kid you not, Jason, it went like this. And what am I doing? Well, I'm looking behind me to make sure like Candid Camera or, Ashton Kutcher isn't around. And then he leans forward, and we've been buddies. And he says, hey, man, and whispers it. No one's around.
Yeah.
And whispers it, hey, how was your sex life in your marriage? No one's ever uttered that question to each other in half a dozen years.
Yeah.
Because that's just not how we're wired. So I totally agree with you. Let's just embrace who we are.
Yeah, and it's something that I think we as men need to embrace a little bit more. I mean, because one of the biggest things, there's such a shift going on right now. A lot of it's part of the feminist movement and women empowering themselves. And unfortunately, that empowerment movement is like, okay, well, guys, you be like women now. You be like us. And it's like, but then at the same time where they're going, you be like us and be emotional and do all and express yourself. Now they're going, well, I can't find a good man. And I can't find a real man anymore. And of course, they're looking for a traditional man. But there's not a lot of women being traditional women. And of course, that's that survival thing. That's one of the things. It's a first world problem. We can talk about these things all we want to in the States because it's a first world problem. Like, you wouldn't have these issues if we were third world and living, hand to mouth in subsistence level, having to grow our own food and worried about survival. Because as soon as we go into survival, we immediately go back to our natural roles, our traditional roles of the men providing and hunting and doing all those things, and the women taking care of the home and the kids. I mean, so now we don't have to do those things. And so I think in some ways we're all kind of lost because we're not quite sure who we're serving anymore. And it kind of goes back to this, like, well, if I'm not a real man or not a quote unquote typical man because I don't have to go out and hunt and fish and plow the field to grow food, like, who am I? And so it's like we have to redefine these things in a lot of ways. And so it's why we do the shows, why we have these conversations, because a lot of times it's just a matter of putting some awareness on what's going on and then helping us redefine it. And speaking of redefining, I think we'll take a little break and redefine ourselves on this party break. So, Mad Men of Masculinity, KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High City. We'll be right back. About a minute early, but you know what?
No worries.
I could just feel
there
was some momentum, and if we kept going, it was going to go.
Yeah. No, that's good. Good stuff, brother. This is great.
Isn't it fun?
Yeah, man.
We can talk, and nobody's telling us to shut up. Well, except for her, but she doesn't care.
And I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
It's Nikki.
Nikki?
Nikki Nicole, super producer. You love it when we talk about women. It makes you all mad and get you all in your feelings.
Oh, has he pissed you off a few times, Nikki?
We've had moments.
Well, we'll see if I am as annoying.
Well, we haven't started talking about.
Hey, we could definitely talk about women, but
well,
I'm gonna say some things that I think would shock most women.
Okay, well, let's come back and then we'll do that.
Cool. No, I love this. I could talk about this for decades.
And we're back. Mad Men of Masculinity on KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High City. We are joined today by Mr. Brett Zachman of bmen.org, and we're digging into it, fellas. We're talking about servant warriors, warrior servants, and being a man today in the world.
That's right.
So where were we at before? What were we talking about?
I mean, I think what you were defining is the confusion.
Yeah.
And so we're all in the mess together. This is one of the things that is a passion of mine, personally. And then I think it's a good tenet with Be Men. It's a message we're trying to get out there is together, right? Like in the word woman, there's man.
Yeah.
So why are we so busy trying to divide each other? I get it. Men have done a lot of things that have hurt women. And women perhaps are feeling like, now let's have some recompense, perhaps. But, we're in this together. And so women are redefining themselves. And they had to.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about a little bit earlier. Like, men, if you were second-class citizens for a couple thousand years, how well would you have taken that? None of us would have taken it well. So the women did what they needed to do. Now, there's a whole bunch of things we can talk about, right, culturally, vocationally, that are happening in the United States of America. I mean, the Industrial Revolution ended over 100 years ago. It's not going to come back. We've offshored and outsourced and this, that, and the other, right? So there's a whole bunch of things going on professionally where now America is sort of like service America, and perhaps project management, and perhaps multitasking, and maybe men are not as comfortable with that. So we used to define ourselves with trades and vocations, but if we can't define ourselves that way, and like you said, if we were protectors and providers, but now women can protect and perhaps provide for themselves from a currency standpoint, well, now we can't define ourselves that way. So, where's our stable ground? Where's the rock upon which we stand? Because everything feels like sand now. And so women are saying, well, we can't find real men. And I get what they're saying. And then we've, you and Kirk have talked, and I agree, the nice men thing, that's a cliche that we got to get around that, folks. Yep. If we had more nice guys, you know what we would have? We would have emotionally healthier women and intact partnerships. So we don't mean nice by Webster's definition. When we say, gosh, we're nice guys finish last. No, what you're talking about is spineless, ballless men. It's passive guys that finish last, right? We're in a world where if you're going to sit and wait for pennies from heaven to drop into your lap, hey, if that works for you and somehow magically it happens, then kudos to you. But what I've been taught and what I'm teaching my sons is, you got to kind of go get it, man. Yeah. You got to decide what to make some decisions, be a finisher, be a completer, take a stand, decide what you're going to do. How can you create value? How could you exchange that for currency? What do you think? Those types of things.
Yeah. And I think the whole togetherness thing is where, of course, conspiracy theory, whatever you want to call it. I think there's a war on men. I think there's a war on the American family. I think there's a lot of things going on right now. There's just one more way to divide and conquer. And I think it's been going on for thousands of years, and it just keeps going on. And we all seem to go, oh, well, they're not trying to divide and conquer us. But then everything in the news is, oh, well, men are bad and women are great. And what's your pronoun and what's your this or that and all these different things. And it's all about dividing us by, sex and race and everything else. And so looking at life through a point of, like you said, togetherness and realizing we need each other. And that's the biggest thing that it kind of drives me nuts is that a lot of times is people are like, well, I don't need. And, and I go through it myself. It's like, well, I've made it this, in mid-40s by myself, no family. I don't need anybody. But, of course, life is about sharing and having some appreciation. Right. And I think that's one of the things that drives me nuts when I hear, like, a lot of ladies nowadays saying, well, I don't need a man. And of course, if you're financially stable, you don't quote unquote need a man in your personal life, but you need a man to build that house. You need a man to, take out the trash. You need a man to work on your car. You need a man to work on the electricity and the pipelines and the plumbing and all these different things. I joke sometimes, it's kind of a joke, but I say, if you really believe in, you're I don't need a man kind of woman in America, move out into the woods and start building your own house and hunting your own food and, you'll do just fine, I'm sure. But in the Western world, we're all in this together. And that the separatist kind of mindset of, I don't need anybody else, just kind of drives me nuts most of the time.
Yeah, we're way too much me. I grew up an athlete, and the joke or the cliche, the mantra was, big team, little me, or there's no I in team. Right. And golly, we're just all about the me present day. I get what women are saying, and I have my own little saying about that. Now, my walk hasn't been your walk, right? Like, I was together. So, I did the route, the Disney storybook, right? And you get the high school diploma, and then you go get the college degree, then you go get the wife, and then you get the house, and then you get the 2 cars and the 2 dogs, and then later come the 2 children and the picket fence, and then you're left happily ever after. Which sounds awesome and works great in books and movies. Right. It just doesn't actually work in real life. And so here I've been a single divorced father for 20 years. And let me tell you, that is a tough road. So hats off to all the single parents, men and women, mothers and fathers out there. But what I'm apt to say is, look, I don't need a woman for anything. Technically. Right? I've figured out how to be self-sufficient. I've figured out how to survive. But being a heterosexual man, I want a woman for everything. Yeah. You said sharing, right? There's so much of life without partnership that is a little bit less. It's just not quite as full. So I understand where we're at. We don't need each other for anything, but maybe we want each other for everything. You know, there's another cliche that I want to bust, Jason. We've all heard it, right? Behind every man stands what?
A great woman.
Or what about beside?
Right.
Because honestly, that's, 100% equality just doesn't exist. There's give and take, you know? I suck at certain things, and my partner hopefully is a whole lot better at those things. And then maybe she's not as great at other things, and then maybe I excel.
Yeah, and that's why we did that whole equality versus equity thing, because we keep hearing about equality, but what you really want is equity. Equity means we build up your weaknesses, or we support your weaknesses and then allow your strengths, kind of thing. So if you're shorter and you need the stool, but I'm taller and I don't, you get the stool so you can see over the fence, versus I can just stand on the ground. If you're not as physically strong, then I support your weakness there, and vice versa. I'm not as emotionally adept, so you jab me in the ribs and tell me I'm being insensitive, whatever it is. And that's the equity. We're building on each other's strengths and allowing for our weaknesses. And what we keep seeing as men, trying to be the servant warrior and trying to be the best we can be in the world, is that we're not allowed to have those weaknesses nowadays. And it's another cliche you hear all the time. Women wait for the winners at the finish line. They want the best of the best, the 6 foot tall, 6-figure earner, 6-pack abs, yada, yada, yada. They all want the same guys. But when it comes down to, well, can I be a real man, a real person with emotions and weaknesses and things like that? And it's like, well, yeah, no, I'll take the good stuff, but I don't want to support the weaknesses of a man, the things that make me a human being. And that's where I think a lot of times most of us guys, especially nowadays, struggle, because all we hear is, you got to be X, Y, Z and all the things in between, but don't be anything else. Don't be weak. Don't be needy. Don't be emotional or have any sort of struggles, because I can't handle that.
Right. And I think I'll just speak from the male perspective, that's a trap, fellas. I mean, I joke, which isn't really a joke, about athletics, that there's by the time you get to middle age like us, there's 3 types of guys. There's has-beens, there's wannabes, and there's never-weres.
Yep.
So we are in one of those 3 buckets. I was somewhere between a has-been and a never-was, because I had too many injuries when I was young. And then, we all want to, I want to walk in here and share with you all my victories and how I'm just crushing it in life. I don't want to walk in here, and here's a great example. 2 weeks ago Sunday, it's flag football season. We haven't played in 2 years. And I'm going to come out at semi-retirement just like Tom Brady, right? Wrong. You know what happened? Bought the new cleats, stepped onto the field. We didn't have any subs. We're 10 years older than the other team, which happened to be the former champs. I threw 4 picks. We lost, and I tweaked my knee and had to go get an MRI. Crap.
Yeah.
You talk about feeling older, man. Yeah, you talk about that's like insult upon injury, and no. We don't want to try and celebrate that on social media and stuff. Look at how I lost. Yeah. But we got to figure out some grace and some mercy there, right?
Yeah, I think that's the word right there, is grace. A lot of us need to, especially in our middle years, and we're getting up there, finding some grace. Because I started martial arts in the Air Force, and then I trained for many years, and then even in my early 30s, I was still training MMA in the gyms, and it was doing okay. For me, it was mainly about the fitness and feeling like, I was capable. So that worked for me. But I think I was 35, 36. I think when you get to that age where the old starts creeping in, but you don't want to admit it yet. And I was sparring with some 18-year-old kid, and I went to go block a leg kick, and I pulled my foot up too high. Instead of hitting my shin, it hit the top of my foot and broke 2 bones. Oh! And I remember thinking, as I stepped and fell because my foot wouldn't support me, I'm like, I break now. I used to bend. I break now. What is going on? And I think that's part of that grace. We just have to realize, at some point, as we get older, as men, we can be the servant warrior for as long as we can be, but it changes. As we get older, now we're not going to be so much the frontline warrior or the athlete or whatever. Now there's going to be some sort of, we're the elder, the wise man. We bring some wisdom into the game for the younger generation. But yeah, it is tough getting older, and you do need some grace to realize, hey, guess what? These gray hairs mean wisdom and some experience. but doesn't mean that I can be the grizzled guy on the front line at 40 or 50.
You know, and that's called adapting, right? And how good are we, men? You know, there's like 3 absolutes, right? Jokingly in life, there's death, there's taxes. We kind of stop there, but there's change. Change is always coming. And so if you're, you know, rock solid, like I used to joke with the kids when I was helping coach one of the basketball teams for my younger son, and these little 10 and 12-year-olds are like, why we got to stretch? I'm like, just all right, because Coach Z, yeah, I'm like, have you all seen a rubber band? Like, that was my analogy, my metaphor. They're like, yeah, Coach. I'm like, well, what happens to a rubber band when you set it out in the sun too long? Oh, it gets kind of brittle. And what happens when you try and stretch it? Oh, it snaps. I'm like, well, that's like my body and your body later. If I don't stretch, something's going to snap. Yeah. So that's why we're stretching, fellas. And I think of that like about the whole adapting thing. You know, I'm not who I was 30 years ago. I'm just not. And like, here's a great quote. Muhammad Ali, right? One of the greatest warriors that we can think of he said, a man who thinks the same in his 50s that he did in his 20s wasted 30 years of his life.
Wow. So, well, on that note, we're going to take ourselves a little break because, wow, dropping bombs. Mad Men of Masculinity on KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High City. We'll be right back.
Nice job, brother.
You got that one right on the nose almost.
Nikki's still with us, or does she leave?
No, she won't leave us unattended most of the time.
Yeah. So, Nikki, what do you think about beside, not behind?
We'll see. But once again, you're putting it all on the men. Okay, well, that's all we say. We just want a little accountability. When we hear the men got to do better, we need some accountability both sides.
Oh, really? From the bars? Yeah. I mean, look,
extremes.
I totally appreciate the perspective, and like I'm at an age 52 now where I might ask you or Jason right simultaneously, why would you think that Zach's going to stroll in here and be a healthy, you know, stable 52-year-old male? Who taught me that?
We're going to talk about that.
Oh,
next
okay.
segment. Let's do that. So.
Sweet. Tee it up.
And we're back. Mad Men of Masculinity on KLDC, joined by Brett Zachman from bmen.org. And, during the break, we were talking back and forth with super producer Nikki Nicole, and you brought up something, and this is something we got to dig into. I mean, this topic about servant warrior, and we just kind of got into grace and aging gracefully. What was that you said? Because, I mean, this is some gold right here.
All right. Well, guys, you know, Nikki was sharing, look, you know, women do want to stand beside men. They love that idea. They love that concept. They're struggling to find the guy they can stand beside. I'm like, look, I appreciate the perspective. So here's the thought, you know, to you, Jason, to Nikki, to any man or woman. I'm 52 years young now. Why would you expect me to stroll into this studio and be a healthy, productive, stable, grounded human?
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, I think that's part of the fairy tale. Like, you know, we rode off into the sunset happily ever after. And I think part of what would change the dynamic and probably would make us even better in relationships is not trauma bonding. Because I've done the trauma bonding and that's, you know, that's the love bombing route. And all stuff. It's not a good route. But understanding that the other person has their stuff, and you did a whole talk on this at one of the Parker Social things, you know, intimacy, and part of that is learning about what your partners, whether it's man or woman, their traumas are, their past is, and that those rough edges, rough edges are the edges that hold the glue that you can actually create a strong bond with. But so many of us have been taught this perfect fairy tale BS ending that as soon as things start, and I think if we would look at it that way, like, okay, I see potential here and I see lots of good things, can we come in and start digging out and talking about these things, because those are the things, like when you know all the minutia of your partner and you accept them for that, and you understand it, they are going to be that much more connected to you, intimate with you, much more appreciative of you. And I think vice versa. That's been always one of my biggest fears, is that because I have this perfectionistic mindset.
Yeah.
If somebody ever got to know the real me, they would run for the hills screaming. And I think that's kind of the opposite mindset that we need to have.
Yeah, I mean, I suffer from that. How many men, am I enough, right? That cosmic age-old question inside men, am I enough? Or for women, am I lovable? And so why I've gotten to that place of asking that question is because I'm starting, hopefully, to get, slow but surely, I'm like slow and white, learning this stuff that, I don't have the answers, so maybe it's just asking the question. How do men learn to become better men? Well, that would be in the classroom, Zach. No, they didn't really teach me manhood classes in the classroom. Okay, well, that would be in athletics. Yeah, to a certain degree, right? Or you in the military. Well, that would be your dad. Well, for some of us who have great dads, that's a great source. Others of us don't have great dads. Yep. And so then you learn the things not to be.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the premise behind being men, is like, okay, if we don't have these answers, let's go ask the questions to create the answers. And then you're right. It's a lot of it is back to that servant. What are you willing to give in partnership?
Yeah.
If I go in, I could sit here right now and go, well, I know my perfect match, right? She's Heidi Klum meets Princess Di, meets Mother Teresa, meets my mom and my sister. And then it's like, yeah, but Zach, if she strolled into the studio right now, is she picking you?
Right.
Have you worked on you enough? Are you a 10 in everything that you do, that if this perfect Disneyland woman, princess, walked in, are you ready for that?
Yeah. I mean, we have that conversation so much with a lot of the single ladies that we talk to, and it's the same for the guys. It's like, and I think that's the funny thing is sometimes you hear more about what we talk to the ladies about because they ask the questions louder. They're more into that, like, well, where are the good guys? Well, would that good guy want you? But we have these same conversations with the guys, but usually it's in the men's groups. We talk to the guys like, oh, well, I want this girl and I want that. Well, would she want you? And, we have to take some onus as men. And of course, I think sometimes we put the onus too much on the success and the achievement, and less on the emotional intelligence and personal awareness. Because I think it's much... if you find a woman nowadays, and this is one of the things I always kind of test, is like, if you find a woman nowadays who is emotionally mature and stable and can handle what you say, and if you can talk about your past traumas in an educated way, meaning you have done the work, you've done the therapy, you've talked to a professional long enough so that now there's no emotional attachment to it, an emotion or a memory without the emotional attachment is wisdom. And so this is something that, you can tell, like, okay, I can have a conversation with a woman about my past without being emotional about it because I've worked on it. And if she can accept that and talk about it and we can have an intelligent conversation, this might be somebody to have more and more conversations with and maybe try to bond with. But a lot of times it's really hard to get to that place. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to get to those conversations because everybody wants to keep it superficial and easy and we're Yellow Brick Road it, we're going to the Wizard of Oz,
Yeah, I mean, culturally that story sounds great. It's just not real. I totally agree with you that it's communication. Like I've talked about the 3 C's. It's communication, it's conviction, and it's commitment, right? Or compromise and commitment. What are you willing to commit? Are you going to commit 25%, 50%, 100%? Like, you hear a lot about that. Well, it's 50-50.
No.
Well, I've heard others say, no, it's 100-0.
Yeah.
And then it's like, wait, whoa, what? Yeah, you got to give 100% of yourself, perhaps expecting nothing in return, and then just see what comes back.
Right.
Now, if you get 0 in return, you have your answer. But what if you gave 100% and you got 100% coming back? Right. Now it's could be incredible. And communication, you're right. If you can't talk about the sensitive stuff, I mean...
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, we even brought it up on one of the last episodes. I don't remember which one now, but it's like, ladies, if your man isn't opening up about his sensitive topics to you, he doesn't feel safe with you. He feels like he has to be guarded with you, and so that's why he's shut down. That's why he's not sharing. Right. And a lot of times that goes back and forth in relationship. You know, if there's not this intimate sharing of the pain and the hurts and the struggles, and like I don't know where it stopped, but it used to be there was like the afternoon, evening debrief. You know, both of you would come home from work or whatnot, and then they'd be like, "How was your day? How was your day?" And they would, you know, unload it, and then leave that behind, and now have family time. Yeah. You know, it's like that doesn't seem to be going on anymore.
You know, sometimes I think we get caught. You know, we get caught in like, well, Jason, that's just too basic. Like that's, you know, that's that like father knows best, old school, 50 years ago, simplistic, traditional family value crap. Whoa.
It worked.
Like in the relationships, like, and now, mind you, I don't want anybody to walk away and be like, oh, that guy thinks he knows it all. No, look, I've screwed up in every major facet of life plenty of times. So what I think I've learned, and the times where I have felt I've been in healthy romantic partnership, I refer to it as bookending your day. And so even if it's just a quick text, or now, you know, we have the fun Bitmoji stuff going on, right? And it's a little avatar that looks like me. It's kind of disturbing. I'm like, dude, my Bitmoji is better looking than I am. Holy crap.
I stay away from that. AI is taking over the world.
So, but, you know, just a quick little text exchange of something positive, something helpful, something encouraging, something light, maybe a little romantic, maybe a little cyber flirty to get your day started, right? And then at the end of the day, you know, maybe there's some more of that, or if you're in each other's presence, like you said, then you can have some talk. Like I feel like one of the things I've missed so dramatically over these last couple decades living alone is pillow talk.
Yeah.
Right? And it doesn't have to be like, well, and then we had this amazing, ethereal, onion-peeling conversation about the cosmos and masculine, feminine. No, it can be like, you know, I went to work today. My boss said something that totally effing pissed me off. And then she says something about, yeah, you know, and one of our daughters, or if it's, you know, a split family. And then my daughter said this, and I wanted to tear her hair out. Yep. And then that's real. And you get to share.
Yeah, it's just a matter of having real conversations. I mean, yeah, it's nice to have those, but that's the thing. It's nice to have those ethereal, cosmic, in-depth conversations. But if you can have those, you'll have them very rarely. Usually that's a 1 or 2 time thing where you really dig in deep. And then after that, it's like, okay, I can trust this person. They can trust me. Let's talk about the dog park, and let's talk about the backyard. Let's talk about the kids and the traffic, you know, and these are the things that we deal with every day as human beings. But for some reason, we've gotten away from that. And it's like this, most of us kind of have this what's in it for me mindset, which, I mean, granted, coming from the, you know, the No More Mr. Nice Guy kind of training, you know, if you haven't read that book, gentlemen, if you're struggling as a nice guy, No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover, it's on Audible. Get it. Should be a yearly read or listen, because it's just a game changer. But coming from that, you know, as a man and a servant warrior, a lot of times we get stuck in service. And we get stuck in this. And of course, granted, that's what we hear in the news and kind of in media nowadays is what's in it for me. And you know, coming from the ladies a lot of time, like the guy's got to be all these things. Like I was having a conversation with a young lady who's very attractive, very successful. But she told me, she's like, I want men to do exactly what I want. I'm like, well, then you don't want a good man. You don't want a real man. You want a servant. You want a butler. But you don't want to have a real relationship.
A manservant.
Yeah.
Well, we were, you know, the warrior side of that is equally intriguing to me, because we got into our conversation a week ago, and it was like, gentlemen, are we at war?
Yeah.
If we are, who and what and where? Yeah. You know, because thank you for your service, by the way. Should have said that a long time ago.
It's always uncomfortable for me because I made it out. You know, I grew up that way, so it was kind of the way I grew up. And you know, but yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think that.
Yeah, I mean, my oldest son is serving right now, so that's a new adaptation for me, right? I've never been a military parent. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that means. So I'm having to learn as I go.
Well, it's different. You know, it's like anybody else. You sign your name on the dotted line. You write that blank check for up to and including your life, and hopefully they don't cash it. So you know that's kind of the way the service thing goes. But it's in a way it's similar to how we are as men. And you were talking about, you know, at the meeting about we're at war and who we're at war with, and it dawned on me, it's like, it seems like we're mostly at war with ourselves and our natural masculinity.
Yeah.
And we're having to figure out who we are as men and what it means to be masculine nowadays, because it seems to be celebrated that most of the ladies are more in their masculine, boss babes, alpha babes, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But if a man is in his masculine, then he's either toxic or misogynistic or, but then on the other hand, we hear where are all the good men at? And it's like, well, what do you want? I feel like that was at the Notebook. What do you want?
It's tough. Like one thing I learned getting a liberal arts college degree way back, which 30 years ago, if you got one of those, you didn't know what you were going to be when you became an adult. And nowadays, like, it's all the rage because communication is everything. Right. To your point just a couple minutes ago. So I talk a lot in analogies or metaphors. So one is like the pendulum, right? Mm-hmm. And we all kind of know what that looks like. Well, the pendulum was stuck one way. The balance between masculine and feminine energy, right? The patriarch that we've referred to as men were in charge and women weren't. Right. Okay, and so like the last 100 years, at least in this country, women, took a forced march towards their masculine energy because they had to. But do men know how, I've been asking this for a while, do men know how to do a forced march towards their feminine energy?
Right. Well, but every time we do that, every time we do that, though, that's when we become, they say we're beta males or not real males or whatever. That's the thing is like one of the dichotomies that isn't talked about a lot, and of course we'll have to end this episode on this probably, but there's been so much forward movement for the ladies. The last 100 years, it's all been about, bringing the ladies up and giving them all the rights and everything. And nowadays I don't think any woman has any more or less rights than any man. We pretty much are equal that way, except for we haven't had the same progress for the men. It's all been about upgrading ladies. And so now it's time. Okay, I think we've seen that, like you said, the pendulum has swung so far this way. Now we kind of need to bring it back to center and go, well, okay, how about that? We got to up level the guys as well. And so that's what we do on this show. We love y'all. We thank you for listening. Thank you, Brett, for coming in. And
absolutely, my pleasure.
Make sure to let them know where they can find you and how they can join BMN.
So go to our public-facing website, which is bmen.org. We also are on Facebook, so /BMN Brothers. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram with that same handle, BMN Brothers. I'm Zach at bmen.org. That's the way to reach out to me. Men, I love you guys, man. I haven't met you, but you're my brother from another mother. One of the greatest quotes I ever heard is to have courage is to have heart, but to encourage is to give heart. And so thanks for inviting me on, man. I love your heart. I got a chance to open up, give a little bit of my heart. Hope it helped.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely have you back on. And thank you all for listening. Make sure you get on YouTube, like and subscribe, Mad Men of Masculinity. Go to madmenradio.com, and you can send us all the love and hate emails you want because we love it all. We'll turn it into a topic. Until next time.